Let us all remember that we are in the most holy presence of God.
Almighty God, our Father, we praise and thank you for this day. You have given us another opportunity to appreciate life and to fulfill our mission as your instruments of peace and progress. Please pardon us for our shortcomings. Help us to amend our impieties. May we learn to pattern our lives through your Son's example. Father, bless our endeavors, especially today's meeting. Guide us in our discussions. Enlighten our minds in every decision that we make. Give us your courage and grace that we may effectively do our part as public servants. Bless our plans, programs, and projects so that we may achieve our objectives for your greater glory. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Classroom rules. Always follow our rules. First, pay attention to the lesson videos and other learning materials. Then follow the teacher's instruction. Next, no chatting while classes are ongoing unless it's time for asking questions or clarifications. And of course, no to any kind of bullying. Respect your teacher, co-students, and others. For the last, don't hesitate to ask for help to your teacher and also to your classmates when you need it. Now we have the objectives. At the end of the lesson video, you will be able to apply the laws involving positive integral exponent to zero and negative integral exponents. This is math time. Are you ready for another lesson for this week? If you're ready, let's begin. So let's have a pre-activity first before we proceed with the lesson proper. So answer this on your notebook or on your paper. The activity is entitled as Anticipation Reaction Guide or ARG before discussion. Of course, ito pong activity ito ay before ang discussion. So magkakaroon din tayo ng after discussion. Okay, so ang isusulat nyo lamang sa inyong notebook or paper is your answer. Of course, dun lamang tayo sa response before the discussion. So you can see may column tayo noon. And then column for statement and also column for response after the discussion. And malinaw naman po na nakalagay na dyan, do not answer yet ang ating column for after the discussion. Okay? Siyempre, pag sinulat nyo yan sa papel, huwag nyo naman lagyan ng do not answer yet. Okay? Huwag nyo lang muna sagutin. So, ano po isusulat natin sa response before the discussion? Either agree or disagree. Kailan mag-agree? Kapag alam nyo na ang statement ay tama. Kailan mag-disagree? Pag alam nyong mali ang statement. Okay? Let's proceed with the first statement. Any number raised to 0 is equal to 1. Agree, disagree. You may now write your answer. Next. An expression with a negative exponent cannot be written as an expression with a positive exponent. Agree, disagree. Next statement, 2 raised to negative 3 is equal to 1 over 8. Agree, disagree. Next, 2 raised to 3 is equal to 1 over 8. Are you agree or disagree? Next, continuation of that is, the quantity of 1/3 raised to 2 is equal to 9. Agree, disagree. 3 raised to 0 times 4 raised to negative 2 is equal to 16. Are you agree or disagree? Next, 3 squared times 4 raised to 0 plus 1 and 1 raised to 1 half times 5 raised to 0 is equal to 11. Are you agree or disagree? And for the last, negative 16 raised to 2/3 is equal to negative 16. Are you agree or disagree? Okay, so wala pa pong score ang ating response before discussions kasi syempre, huhulaan nyo lang naman muna kung tama ba ang statement o hindi. So, it's up to you kung kayo ba ay nag-solve o hindi. It's fine. As long as may sagot kayo kung kayo ba ay nag-agree or disagree. Now, let's proceed with the lesson proper. We have positive integral exponents. Under it are the law of exponents, which you have been learned from grade 7 up to grade 8. Now, we have the product rule, the power rule, the quotient rule, the power of product rule, and the power of quotient rule. The product rule, it is defined as for any non-zero real number, a, and positive integers m and n, a raised to m times a raised to n is equal to a raised to m plus n. So, yan po yung kapag pareho ang base and then sila ay product or i-multiply, automatic ang kanilang exponent ay ipag-a-add. Okay? So, ano po ba yung base natin dyan? Ang base po ay yung a. Ang exponent yung nasa taas ng a. Okay? M and n. Now, let's have the example. We have a raised to 6 times a raised to 9 and then 7 raised to 4 and 7 raised to 2. I-multiply sila. Pareho na sila ng base. So, ipag-a-add na lamang ang exponent. We have the product rule. A raised to m times a raised to n is equal to a raised to m plus n. That means, kung pareho po ang base, which is a nga po ang base natin, so sila ay pareho, yung exponent nilang m at n, ipag-a-add natin. Okay? So, let's try the first example. So, since pareho ang base niya, which is a, that means, copy lang natin yung base. And then, ano po yung exponent nila? We have 6 at 9. Ipag-a-add lang daw natin si 6 at 9. That means we have a raised to 6 plus 9. 6 plus 9 is equal to 15. So, the answer is a raised to 15. Okay? How about the second example? We have 7 raised to 4 times 7 raised to 2. So, again, pareho ang base. So, ibig sabihin, ipag-a-add lang natin ang kanilang exponent. Kung ito po ay multiplication. So, 7 raised to 4 plus 2. So, we have 7 raised to 6. Okay? And then, syempre, hindi po dyan natatapos lahat kasi ang 7 raised to 6 ay pwede nating i-evaluate or kuhanin mismo yung sagot na 7 raised to 6, which is, kung i-calculate nyo siya, that would be equal to 117,649. Unlike dito, kasi variable naman siya, kaya hindi nyo siya ma-simplify or evaluate. Kasi dito naman ay numbers, so kaya natin i-simplify. Next, the power rule. For any non-zero real number, a, and positive integers m and n, a raised to m raised to n is equal to a raised to m times n. So, kapag meron po tayong exponent sa labas, distribute natin ng exponent sa loob, and that means i-multiply natin. So, we have a raised to m times n. For the example, we have y cubed raised to 2 and 3y to the 4th raised to 2. And again, multiply lang natin ng exponent nila to get the answer. Now, let's proceed with the power rule. We have the quantity of a raised to m raised to n is equal to a raised to mn. So, as you can see, pinag-multiply lamang ang exponent ni a, which is m, times yung exponent sa labas. So, naging a raised to m times n. Multiplication po yon. So, let's try the first example. We have y cubed, the quantity of y cubed raised to 2. So, ang una natin gagawin ay y cubed natin dito. So, ilagay natin. Then, multiply lang natin sa exponent na sa labas. So, y raised to 3 times 2. That would be y is equal to 3 times 2 is 6. And that would be your final answer. Okay? How about the second example? We have 3y to the 4th raised to 2. So, since dalawa yan, may si 3 at saka y raised to 4, at si 3 ay naka-raise sa 1, imaginary 1. So, we have 3 raised to 1, then y raised to 4th. Okay? So, ang gagawin po natin, i-multiply daw natin by the exponent 2 kasi ito ay multiply natin sa exponent ni 3 at exponent na 4. Okay? So, 3 raised to 1 times 2 and then y raised to 4 times 2. Okay? And then, 3 raised to 1 times 2 is 3 raised to 2. Y raised to 4 times 2 is 8. Okay? 3 raised to 2 or 3 times 3 is equal to 9. And then y raised to 8, yun na po iyon. So, that would be your final answer. Now, the power of product rule. For any non-zero real number a and positive integers m and n, the quantity of ab raised to m is equal to a raised to m, b raised to m. That means, minultiply po natin siya, yung product ng ab, sa exponent na m. Now, we have the example x squared y raised to 3, and then 2x cubed y raised to 5th raised to 4. Now, we have the power of product rule. So, we have the quantity of AB, A times B raised to M, is equal to A raised to M, B raised to M. As you can see, ang A natin, which is having the imaginary power 1, and also the B, minultiply siya kay M. So, 1 times M, that would be M. That's why we have A raised to M. The same ng ating B, may imaginary power siya na 1. 1 times M is M, so we have B raised to M. So, let's try number 1. So, we have x squared. Mumultiply nga po natin yung exponent sa labas, which is 3. And also in y, we have y raised to 1 times the exponent sa labas, which is 3. Okay? So, x raised to 2 times 3 is equal to 6. And then y raised to 1 times 3 is 3. And that would be your final answer. Next, we have 2x cubed y raised to 5th raised to 4. So, ibig sabihin, ang exponent natin sa labas ay 4. At yan ang imumultiply natin sa bawat exponent. Okay? Pag po kasi number class, automatic yan po ay may power or exponent na 1. Okay? Huwag niyo pong kakalimutan nyo na palagi po siyang naka-raise sa power or sa power na 1. So, 2 raised to 1 times yung exponent sa labas, which is 4. And then, x cubed times 4. And then, y raised to 5th times 4. Lagi pong sa exponent sa labas ang imumultiply mo dyan. Okay? Simplify natin. 2 raised to 1 times 4 is 4. So, we have 2 raised to 4. Then, x, 3 times 4 is 12. Then, y, 5 times 4 is 20. Are we done? Not yet. Kasi po, pwede natin i-simplify si 2 raised to 4 since siya po ay number. So, ibig sabihin po ng 2 raised to 4 ay multiply natin sa sarili ang 2 ng 4 na beses. So, 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. That's why 2 raised to 4 is 16. Then just copy the variable having the exponent 12 and 20, x raised to 12 and y raised to 20, and that would be your final answer. Now, how about the quotient rule? For any non-zero real number a and positive integers m and n, a raised to m all over a raised to n is equal to a raised to m minus n. So, dapat po talaga dyan ay pareho pa rin ang base kapag quotient rule. Katulad ng ating product rule kanina, kung doon naman ay pinag-a-add kapag product, pag multiplication, kapag dito naman division or quotient, pinagma-minus naman ng ating exponent. Example, a raised to 7 all over a raised to 5, x raised to 6, y raised to 10 all over x cubed y. So we have the quotient rule. A raised to m all over a raised to n is equal to a raised to m minus n. As you can see, yung exponent ni numerator, ima-minus natin sa exponent ni denominator. Okay? Let's have the first example, a raised to 7 all over a raised to 5. So we have a raised to 7 minus 5. Plus, makakapag-minus lang kayo ng ganito kung pareho ang base. Parang kanina sa ating product rule, makakapag-add kayo ng exponent kung pareho ang base. Since pareho silang a ang base natin, so makakapag-minus tayo. A raised to 7 minus 5 is equal to 2. That means the final answer is a squared. Next, a raised to 6, y raised to 10 all over x cubed y. So, dalawa yung variable. Unahin natin si variable x. So, we have x raised to 6 minus 3 and then multiply by y raised to 10 minus 1. Kasi automatic may imaginary 1 dito. Okay? Then, x raised to 6 minus 3 is 3 times y raised to 10 minus 1 is 9. Okay? Then, for final answer, we have x cubed y raised to 9. Okay? Tanggalin na po natin ang plot or yung dot na nagsisignify na siya ay multiplication. For final answer, ganito na lamang po. X cubed y raised to 9. And then, the power of quotient rule. For any non-zero real number a and positive integers m and n, a all over b raised to m is equal to a raised to m all over b raised to m. As you can see, naka-quotient rule siya, ibig sabihin, naka-fraction form, pero kasama din dyan ang the power rule. Kasi po, i-distribute natin yung exponent sa exponent ni a, which is imaginary 1, and also the exponent of b, which is imaginary 1. That's why we have a raised to m all over b raised to m. For example, we have the quantity of a over b raised to 4 and the quantity of a squared b to the 4th all over ab cubed raised to 4. Now, let's proceed with the power of quotient rule. We have the quantity of a over b raised to m is equal to a raised to m all over b raised to m. As you can see, dinistribute po natin yung exponent sa labas, which is m, kay a raised to 1 at saka kay b raised to 1. Kasi may imaginary 1 po sila. Okay? So, let's try number 1. For the first example, we have the quantity of a over b raised to 4. And again, ang a po natin ay may power na 1, imaginary 1. The same with b raised to 1. And then, ang next natin gagawin is to multiply them, the exponent of them, into 4, yung exponent sa labas. Okay? So, 1 times 4, that would be 4. So, a raised to 4. 1 times 4 again is 4. So, b raised to 4. And that would be your final answer. Next, we have a squared b raised to 4 all over a b cubed raised to 4. So, ganun lang po ulit. A raised to 2 times yung exponent sa labas na 4. And then, b raised to 4 times the 4 all over a raised to 1 times 4, and then b cubed raised to 4. Okay? Then, simplify natin. A raised to 2 times 4 is 8. B raised to 4 times 4 is 16. All over, A raised to 1 times 4 is 4. B raised to 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, is it done? Not yet. Kasi pwede pa po natin siyang mas-simplify. Ano po ang gagawin natin para mas-simplify ito? So, gagamitin po natin ang ating quotient rule. Ibig sabihin, kapag magkapareho ng base, ima-minus natin ang exponent. Okay? Since pareho naman po ng base, so isulat natin yung base ni A, and then 8 minus 4. Pareho din po ng base na B, so isulat natin, and then their exponent, 16 minus 12. For the final answer, we have A raised to 8 minus 4 is 4, and then B, 16 minus 12 is 4. So, final answer natin ay 8 to the 4th, B to the 4th. Okay? Now, we have the zero exponents or the zero power. Let's have the first example. Let's have the first example, A over B raised to 0. Let's have the first example, A over B raised to 0. Second example, A squared B raised to 4 all over A B cubed raised to 0. Now, we have the zero power, wherein A raised to 0 is always equal to 1. So, kung ano man pong variable or number na naka-raise sa 0, that would always be equal to 1. So, let's try number 1. A all over B raised to 0. So, class again, ang A natin dito ay naka-raise to 1. Multiply natin by 0. Kasi siyang exponent sa labas, and then b raised to 1 times 0. Then that would be a raised to 0, b raised to 0. Okay? Automatic, ang dalawang ito, a raised to 0 all over b raised to 0 is equal to 1. Okay? Next. So, a squared times 0, b to the 4 times 0 all over A raised to 1 times 0, then B cubed raised to 0. So, we have A raised to 0, B raised to 0, all over A raised to 0, and B raised to 0. Kasi kahit ano pong number, ang multiply mo kay 0, automatic 0, 0 sila. So, A raised to 0 is 1, B raised to 0 is 1, automatic 1 yan, all over. A raised to 0, B raised to 0 is equal to 1. 1 divided by 1, that would be equal to 1. Okay? Or kahit din nyo po ay ganito, diretso agad pong 1, that's fine. Okay? How about po kung tayo ay may given na 8a squared raised to 0 all over b squared y raised to 0. So, gawin po natin. 8 raised to 0, a squared times 0 all over b squared y raised to 0. So, automatic 1 na po yung 8 raised to 0, and then a times 2 times 0 is 0. So, automatic, 1 na din yan. 1 all over. B squared. So, B squared yan. And y raised to 0, that would be 1. That means we have 1 all over B squared. Kasi B squared times 1 ay B squared. So, the answer is 1 all over B squared. Okay, from the example, we can say that any number or variable raised to 0 is always equal to 1. Now, we have negative integral exponent or having the negative power. So, we have the first example, a raised to negative 2. Second example, a squared all over b cubed raised to negative 3. Now, we have the negative power, which is a is raised to negative m. That would be equal to 1 all over a raised to m. Kung mapapansin nyo, kapag daw ang ating polynomial or any number na naka-raise sa negative na exponent, ang nagiging sagot nga palagi ay naka-fraction. And natatanggal na yung kanyang negative exponent. Yung negative niya nagiging positive. Yun nga lang po ay naka-fraction. Okay? So, let's try the first example. We have a raised to negative 2. That means, magkakaroon tayo ng fraction. So, since ang ating a raised to 2 ay nasa, kung maglalagay tayo ng over 1 dyan, so ang a raised to 2 natin ay nasa numerator, ililipat natin ngayon sa denominator, that would be a raised to 2. Nawala na po ang negative. Okay? And then yung 1 natin, automatic may 1 na po dito. Kasi nabaliktad na yung kanilang pwesto. Okay? Kasi class, kapag nagbaba kayo dito ng a raised to negative 2, automatic nagiging fraction, nagbaba kayo sa denominator at wala na po siyang, halimbawa, 1 na nga lang po ang nakalagay dito, automatic 1 na po ang kanyang numerator. And that would be your final answer. Next, we have a squared all over b cubed raised to negative 3. So, ang gagawin po natin dito, mababaliktad po ang numerator at denominator. At syempre, multiply muna natin sa exponent na negative 3 bago po ibaliktad. Okay? A squared multiplied by negative 3 all over b cubed times negative 3. Then we have a raised to negative 6 all over b raised to negative 9. Since pareho na pong negative ang exponent ng a and b, that means babaliktarin na lang po natin ang numerator at denominator. Kung nasa numerator ang a raised to 6, negative 6, magiging denominator na po siya. So, magiging a raised to 6 at positive na po, hindi na po siya negative. Ang b raised to negative 9 naman sa numerator at positive na po siya. And that would be your final answer. Next, how about po kapag tayo ay may ganitong example? Although hindi ito nakalagay sa aking PowerPoint, nagbigay na rin ako ng example in case na meron sa book nyo na ganito ang situation. Okay? So, we have 3x raised to negative 2, y raised to 4, all over. Distribute natin yung negative 3. So, a squared times negative 3, then b raised to 4 times negative 3. Okay? Then next, yung may mga negative ang exponent, automatic maiiba ang kanilang pwesto. Kung sila ay nasa numerator, bababa sila. Kung sila ay nasa denominator, tataas naman sila. Okay? Since ang 3 natin, wala siyang negative na exponent. Kasi imaginary 1 yan, at positive yon. So, remains si 3 sa taas. And then, remain din ang ating y raised to 4. All over. So, ibababa po natin yung x raised to negative 2. So, may x squared po sa baba. How about po si a raised to 2 times negative 3? That would be negative 6. So, itataas po natin kasi negative pa din. That means we have a raised to 6 and b raised to 4 times negative 3, that would be negative 12. Para mawala ang 12 nga, ang negative, itataas natin. So, b raised to 12. Okay? Para mas okay po ang ating sagot, i-arrange po natin alphabetically ang ating variable. That means we have 3, a raised to 6, b raised to 12, y to the 4th, all over x squared. And that would be your final answer. From those examples, we can say that an expression with a negative exponent can be written as expression with a positive exponent. And then now we have the equal power. Equal power are the two powers that are equal if and only if they have equal bases and equal exponent. A raised to x raised to a is equal to y raised to b if and only if x is equal to y and a is equal to b. So, kapag hindi po equal ang bases, yun muna ang gagawin nyo. Kailangan mag-equal muna ang base and then solve po ang ating exponent for them to be equal. So, we have the first example and then the other example. Now, let's proceed with the equal power. We have x raised to a is equal to y raised to b. That means, yung atin pong mga base, which is x and y, sila po dapat ay mag-equal ang base for us to find for the exponent. Okay? For example, may missing exponent po yung si x, so yun ang ating hahanapin. Paano po natin hahanapin? Kailangan magawa natin na pareho ang base or equal po ang kanilang base. Okay? Let's try it for number 1. First example. We have 3 raised to x is equal to 81. So, 3 raised to x, missing yung exponent ni x para mag-equal kay 81. That means, ang 81 natin, maghahanap tayo ng maaaring base ni 81 na may exponent. Since 3 raised to x, dapat ang maging base ni 81 ay 3 din for them to be equal. Okay? So, we have 3 raised to x is equal to 3. Ano po kayang exponent natin ni 3 para siya ay mag-equal kay 81? That would be 4. Kasi 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. 27 times 3 is equal to 81. Okay? Since pareho na po yung basis nila na 3, pareho na silang 3, so ibaba na po natin yung exponent nilang x equals, then ibaba natin yung 4. That means, ang missing na exponent ni 3 raised to x ay 4. So, we have the second example, 4 raised to x is equal to 128. So, again, missing ang exponent ni 4. At magkaiba sila ng bases. Ang base ng nasa left ay 4. And 128, pwede po kaya ang 4? So, ibig sabihin, kailangan, kapag minultiply natin ang 4 sa sarili, ang maging sagot niya ay 128. So, let's try. 4 times 4, so naka-raise na siya sa 2, that's 16. So, 16 times 4, that would be 64. Okay, naka-raise na siya sa 3. Then, 64 times 4, that would be 256. Ibig sabihin, hindi nag-equal kay 128. So, ang basis natin ay hindi pwedeng 4. Okay? So, ano po kaya ang maaaring base? Ano po kaya ang alternative way para ma-solve ito? Kung hindi pwede ang base na 4 sa 128. Si 4 po ba natin? Pwede pa po ba siyang mas-simplify na ang base po niya ay hindi 4? Pwede po. So, si 4 natin, pwede natin gawing 2 raised to 2 times x. Kasi may x pa nga po yung 4. Diba? 2 raised to 2 is equal to 4. Same lang po yan. Okay? How about kay 128? Pwede na po kaya ang base na 2? Yes po. Kasi 2 raised to 7 is equal to 128. Kahit i-calculate nyo siya or gamitin nyo ang 2 times 2, that would be 4 times 2, that would be 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 times 2 is 32. Times 2 is 64. Times 2 is 128. At yun ay pang 7. Okay? Since pareho na sila ng bases, so pwede na natin ibaba yung exponent na 2x is equal to 7. And then, since may coefficient si x, that would be divided both side by 2. So, cancel na sa 2. So, x is equal to 7 over 2. So, ang exponent ni 4 raised to x ay 7 over 2. Para siya ay mag-equal kay 128. The next example, we have 5 raised to x plus 2 is equal to 625. So, you can see, binomial naman ng ating exponent. Paano po kaya yan? So, again, dapat pareho po ang bases. Sa 625, pwede po kaya siya mag-base sa 5? Ang maging base niya ay 5? Yes po. And that would be 5 raised to 4. Kasi 5 times 5 is 25, times 5 is 125, times 5 is 625. We have 5 raised to x plus 2 is equal to 5 raised to 4. And then, pareho na sila ng bases. So, we have x plus 2 is equal to 4. And then, ilipat natin si 2 sa kabila. Or pwede yung gawin natin class. Sige, papakita ko sa inyo ang dalawang solution dyan. Pwede po ilipat. Ang tawag dun ay transpose. So, equals 4 minus 2. So, x equal to 2. Okay? So, another solution for that is what we call the adding and subtracting of equality. So, x plus 2 is equal to 4. Since plus 2 ang katabi ni x, kuhanin natin yung opposite ni positive 2. That would be negative 2, tama? So, maglagay ka ng negative 2 sa tabi niya, and then negative 2 kay 4. Kung naglagay ka dito ng negative 2, dapat maglalagay ka rin sa kabila. Okay? So, x, positive, the negative 2, automatic sila ay 0. So, equal sign. 4 minus 2 is 2. As you could see, pareho lang sila. Okay? So, kahit po alin sa dalawa ang inyong gamiting solution. Now, I think you are now ready for a formative assessment. Let's have classwork number 2. Please answer page 176, numbers 1 to 20 on your notebook or paper. So, again, this is a formative assessment. So, your output will not be submitted through Google Classroom or on school or barangay hall. Hindi na po kayo magsasubmit ng output nito. Pero kung gusto niyo naman mag-submit, it's up to you. Okay? Pero hindi ko na po kayo nire-require na mag-submit ng output ng ating classwork number 2. For classwork number 2, okay? Now, let's proceed with the post activity. Because kanina nag-pre-activity na tayo. So, ngayon mag-post activity tayo. So, class, sa ating anticipation reaction guide, syempre response after the discussion, let's see kung talagang naintindihan. So, sa ating any number raised to 0 is equal to 1, agree po tayo doon. Kasi sabi ko nga po sa discussion kanina, kahit ano pong number polynomial na naka-raise to 0 is equal to 1. Always equal to 1. So, agree po tayo doon. Next, an expression with a negative exponent cannot be written as expression with a positive exponent. Sabi ko nga kanina sa discussion, it can be written as expression with a positive exponent. Paano po nangyayari yon? Kapag written form siya ng fraction form. O kaya naman, binaliktad natin ang numerator, ginawa ng denominator, ginawang numerator. Okay? So, that means, dahil mayroon siyang word na cannot, disagree tayo. Okay? Next, 4 raised to negative 3 is equal to 1 over 8. Agree po tayo doon, kasi nga 2 raised to negative 3, 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. Since may negative, so magiging fraction, we have 1 over 8, which is correct. Agree. Next, since siya ay nag-agree na sa ating 2 raised to negative 3, so ang 2 raised to 3 is equal to positive 8 yon, hindi 1 over 8. Kaya disagree tayo. And then continuation, we have 1 over 3 squared. So since positive ang exponent natin, magiging 1 squared all over 3 squared yan. That means we have 1 over 9, not 9. Kaya disagree tayo. Next, we have 3 raised to 0, 4 raised to negative 2. 3 raised to 0 is equal to 1 times 4 raised to negative 2. Since may negative siya, so dapat 1 over 16. Kaya disagree tayo dyan. And the next, 3 squared, that would be equal to 9. 4 raised to 0 is 1. 9 times 1 is 9. Plus, 1 raised to 1 half, that means square root ng 1. Is equal to 1. And 5 raised to 0 is 1. So, 1 times 1 is 1. And then, 9 plus 1 is equal to 10. So, agree. Next is negative 27 raised to 2 over 3 is equal to 9. So, since hindi nyo pa naman po ito alam, bibigyan ko na, ito kasi ang ating, kasama kasi ito sa ating next na lesson. Negative 27, ibig sabihin, negative 27 raised to 2 over 3, that means we have the cube root of negative 27 squared is equal to 9. Is that correct? So, class, yung ating negative 27 squared, that would be 729. And then, the cube root of 729, that would be equal to 9. Because 9 times 9 times 9 is equal to 729. So, this is agree. Now, here are your to-dos. For watching the video, answer classwork number 2 on your notebook or paper. Answer book activity number 2, page 178 to 179, numbers 1 to 10 on a long bond paper for offline learners. So, hindi rin po require ang ating solution. It's up to you kung gusto nyong gumawa ng solution or maglagay ng solution for offline learners. And syempre, answer on Kuiper for online learners. Again, hindi rin po require ang solution sa inyo. Mapa offline or online learners. It's up to you. Now, day 5, answer self-assessment checklist on Kuiper for online learners and answer only on a long bond paper for offline learners. So, hindi nyo na po kailangang kopyahin pa ang aking self-assessment checklist. Baka doon lang kasi tinatamad kaya hindi nagsasagot. So, answer only na lamang. Ang kailangan ko lamang, class, ay malaman ko kung talagang may naunawaan kayo this week for this lesson at kung saan kayo nahihirapan para at least ma-discuss at ma-clarify natin yan kapag nag-Google Meeting tayo. So, for offline learners, I hope na kayo ay maka-attend ng Google Meeting kasi mahirap po, class, na nag-base lamang tayo sa lesson video, sa recorded lesson video, na hindi po natin nakaklarify kung ano yung nakakalito sa inyo or difficulties nyo. So, kung may time po kayo at kaya naman po ng budget na mag-load, so, na-schedule naman po yun once a week ang ating Google Meeting. Now, to this for week 12, kasi ito pong lesson video ay good for 2 weeks. For the day 1, answer book activity number 3, page 183, numbers 29 to 38 on a long bond paper for offline learners, and answer on Kuiper for online learners. Again, the solution is not required. It's up to you kung magpapasa pa rin. Now, class, sa mga offline natin na magpapasa ng answer for your book activity. So, kailangan po ay may format, yung binigay kong format, which is name, section, week number, so week 12, and then book activity number 3 and page 183. Yun po ang ating format. And then for the day 2, so 2 araw nyo po gagawin ang PETA. More than 2 days pa yan kasi gawa ng due date natin ay mahaba. So, do PETA number 2 with your group mates to be submitted on November 20. So, class, ang ating PETA number 2 ay so, ang ating PETA number 2 is by group. So, sa ating online learners and offline learners, especially ang ating offline learners, kung kayo po ay sa palagay nyo, hindi nyo kayang makipag-collaborate sa ating online learners kasi nga po sila ay online, so, pwede po kayong mag-solo or gumawa ng inyo ang ating mga offline as long as sasabihin sa akin. Pero class, for now, magbibigay ako ng list ng grupo nyo kung sino-sino po ang kagrupo nyo. So, kasama pa rin doon ang ating offline. In case nga na hindi nyo kaya na makisabay sa offline, doon natin tatanggalin kayo sa grupo nyo. So, we have to-dos of week 12. Please ready for our chapter test 2. That would be on Kuiper. So, for offline learners, paki-ready na po na pang-data nyo or paki-ready na po ng inyong pang-data for chapter test 2 kasi po ito ay online. Isang beses lang naman po kayo mag-online for this week. That is for our chapter test 2, 1-day examination on Kuiper. And then for day 5, answer self-assessment checklist on Kuiper for online learners and answer only on long bond paper for offline learners. Here is the pattern number 2 entitled as Write About Me activity. A math magazine is looking for new and original articles for its edition on the topic zero, negative, and rational exponents around us. As a writer, you will join the said competition by submitting your own article or feature. The output will be evaluated by the chief editor or your group leader, and I'll be the one who will choose the group leader, and also your teacher, which is me. They will base their judgment on the accuracy, mathematical reasoning, and organization of the report. So, ibig sabihin, bukod po ang score nyo or magiging score nyo ay depende sa pag-evaluate sa inyo ng chief editor or your group leader and combination ng aking pagbibigay ng score. So, si group leader, ako lamang ang magbibigay ng score sa kanya. Ako lamang mag-evaluate. Pero yung the rest, yung members, may group leader at saka ako. Okay? So, nakalagay naman po dito ang categories with its description. We have the excellent, merit, achieve, and needs improvement. Also, there are objectival rating, its rating range, and grade range. Okay? So, kayo po ngayon ay magiging journalist, one of the journalists sa ating TLGA. At syempre, ang article nyo ay about sa ating topic zero, negative, and rational exponents around us. So, depende po sa inyo kung paano nyo isusulat ang ating article or paano nyo i-feature. Pwede kayong tumulad sa ating mga newspaper articles, magazine articles, or kahit sa internet, madami kayong makikita doon kung paano magsulat ng article or feature. Okay?